Good morning, everyone. I'm Quinn Wisson from Vertical Measures, and I am here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is a topic near and dear to my heart and is titled Grow Your Business with Hub and Spoke Content Marketing, and will be presented by our very own Mike Huber. Mike is our Director of Business Strategy here at Vertical Measures, and he actually started out in newspaper advertising, and he's seen the transformation of print to digital, and he works with our clients to help them see significant growth, traffic, and increased revenue. Before we get started and I hand over the presentation to Mike, I just have a couple of things to note. Today's webinar will be available for viewing by tomorrow, and I will go ahead and send everyone a link to both the recording and the slides so you can review. We'll also be happy to answer any of your questions. So if you take a peek at your webinar interface, you'll see a little question applet where you could send anything you'd like me to ask Mike at the end of his presentation. Also, you can ask us questions via Twitter, so please use the hashtag VMWebinar and I'll find you that way. If you have any technical problems, please sign off and then attempt to come back on, and usually that fixes it. So I think those are all my notes. I will go ahead and hand it off to our presenter, Mike Huber.
Hi everybody, Mike Huber here. Welcome to the webinar today. I'm glad you decided to take the time. Hopefully what I have to say today will help you with your content marketing. And what I'm going to talk about is really what we've learned over 9 years, lessons learned in what we've been doing here at Vertical Measures. We've been developing content marketing strategies, and we've really embraced this concept of hub and spoke content marketing. Although the concept certainly isn't new or unique, what we found is it works, and it works really well. So in the webinar, what I want to do is talk about hub and spoke content marketing and talk about the Vertical Measures definition of that, some of the best practices that we've developed over time, how you can deploy this strategy. I even have a sample campaign calendar that I'll review with you. And then we'll talk about some of the results that we've been able to achieve and some of the results that I found with other successful campaigns out there. And as Quinn mentioned, we'll save some time at the end for questions, and we'll certainly send you this deck as well. Before we get started, just a bit about me and Vertical Measures. We are a 50-person content marketing, SEO, and PPC agency in the Phoenix area. And as Quinn mentioned, I have a background in advertising and marketing. I moved from a traditional background of newspaper advertising in 1999 into the digital space. So seen a lot of growth and a lot of changes. Been on a number of startup teams, and some would say I'm an SEO expert. But here's our agenda for today. I just want to do a little bit of a setup and make a case for content marketing before I get into hub and spoke. And I would imagine that many of you who are on the webinar today already know what content marketing is, but I see that there's a lot of challenges out there now. Just want to cover those briefly, and then I'll move into our definition, the Vertical Measures definition of hub and spoke. I'll talk about the production calendar, some results that we've seen, and I also have a slide of some references on hub and spoke to save you some time. So if you do decide to go down this path, you'll have an easy reference guide to go look at different blog posts and some other information on hub and spoke. And then finally, we'll do some questions. One of the things that we're challenged with today as content marketers is the attention span of the average person. It's actually gone down from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8.5 seconds. So certainly that's a challenge, especially when you consider that a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So this is certainly a challenge as people come to our website. We want to make sure that as we bring them in, we give them something that they're going to like and something that they're going to consume. But another challenge is that on average, people spend less than 15 seconds on a site. And Hubspot published some information from a survey that Chartbeat had done, where they actually looked at 2 billion web visits, and they discovered that 55% of the visitors that came to those web pages spent less than 15 seconds on the site. So part of it is the attention span, and part of it is we need compelling content to keep them on the website. The other challenge that we have is there's over 1 billion web pages out there, and it's just a sea of websites, and it's really hard to get your head around that many websites. But think about this too. On an average day, there are 2 million blog posts published, 294 billion emails sent out, and 864,000 hours of video that's uploaded. This is every single day. So the big question as content marketers is, how do you get found in this sea of websites? One of the things that I recently watched was a Whiteboard Friday, which was done by Rand Fishkin, who is the co-founder of Moz. And Moz is a company that provides tools to help with SEO and other things that help content marketers. And what he says is that good, unique content needs to die. And in the webinar, what he really talked about is you have to have really good content in order for it to rank and to drive people to your website. While at some level, I certainly agree with Rand, but I think the hub and spoke content model of content marketing actually really helps in that regard, because you want a significant piece of content, but then you also want spokes to support that. And we'll dig into that, and I'll talk a bit more about that. A couple of other things about content marketing. Gary Vee, a quote from him, he says, valuable content will always win, and there'll never be a problem with the volume of great content. There's only a problem with the volume of crappy content. And if you don't know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, he's the CEO of VaynerMedia. He does a lot of keynote addresses. He's really a high-energy speaker. He's fun to listen to. And he drops a lot of F-bombs, so if you decide that you're going to listen to him, just be aware of that. But he's a great source of information on marketing and content marketing. So content marketing as a term has been trending, and if you're in the space at all, you know that. And really the reason I show you this slide is to show you that there's more of an awareness, which also means there's a lot more competition. And along with that, the search engines have gotten a lot more sophisticated with their algorithms, and searchers have gotten a lot more sophisticated too. So your content actually needs to get more sophisticated to be able to resonate both with the search engines and with searchers. So how do you win at content marketing? It's really pretty simple. You want to educate people, you want to help them, you want to answer their questions, and you also want to inspire them. And if you think about it, today's relationships are actually created with information and not people. And a question I have for the audience is, how often does your phone ring? In our office, the phone doesn't actually ring very much because we're building relationships with the content that we're publishing. The users are coming to our site and they're consuming the content and they're coming back for more. And as they come back for more, we start to capture email addresses so we can move them through our sales funnel and actually turn those users into leads and then into clients. Just 2 more slides on my setup. This is a really detailed definition of content marketing, and it's from Lee Oden. And he says that content marketing is the marketing and business process for creating and distributing relevant, valuable content to attract, acquire, and engage a clearly defined, understood target audience with the objective of driving profitable customer action. And I think the last part of that, the driving profitable customer action, is something that oftentimes digital marketers leave out, and it's really part and parcel of the hub and spoke content model. We'll talk about that in a bit. And just a real quick definition by our own CEO, Arne Kahn, he says that buyers are searching for information that helps them make an informed decision, and businesses that provide that information will win. So hopefully in my setup to our discussion on hub and spoke marketing, what I've done is painted a picture of how complicated it is out there in terms of all the different websites, all the things that are being uploaded every single day, and really what the landscape looks like. So as we talk about hub and spoke content marketing, it's really a strategy within content marketing, not a standalone. So I want you to understand that for sure, that Hub and Spoke is just part of an overall content marketing program. So let's get into the definition, at least the vertical measures definition of Hub and Spoke. If you do some research on the internet for Hub and Spoke, you'll find a bunch of different variations of what the concept is all about. In fact, some people, they describe the Hub as your website. But for us, what we do with Hub and Spoke is really envisioning creating something that's of really high quality, like an ebook, a white paper, an extensive case study, something like that, and we call that the Hub. Then what we do is all of the promotional items around that Hub, the spokes, are blog posts, social media posts, they could be guest posts on other websites. All of those spoke pieces of content are built out to give people access to the Hub. And what we do at Vertical Measures is publish a Hub about every 90 days. That cadence allows us to create something substantial, but then also drive traffic to it over 2 to 3 months after it gets published. And what we've developed over time is all of this evergreen content. So now we actually have a library of Hub content, and we continually promote it and drive traffic back to it. So conceptually what you do is research, produce and publish a main piece of content, which becomes the Hub, and then you create many spokes that relate back to that significant piece of content in order to support it, to promote it, and drive traffic to it. The Hub is always published first, and the spokes are published continuously for 2 to 3 months afterward, sometimes even longer, depending on the shelf life of the particular content and the focus of the topic. And the spokes are published in a bunch of different formats in a bunch of different channels. So essentially the spokes are published to drive traffic to the Hub, and then the Hub actually drives conversions and leads and customers for our particular business or for the client's business. And this is really something I think that's important to understand is the Hub is important because without the Hub, the spokes would just be these miscellaneous pieces of information and formats of content that aren't tied to any specific content marketing goals or strategies. The Hub and Spoke are tied together that way. They need to be done in tandem because without the spoke content promoting and distributing, the Hub wouldn't get enough traffic to be successful. And one of the things to consider too is oftentimes your website is the last place a user will discover your content. And that's why we need to do the spokes and we need to promote. And we'll talk a little bit more about distribution and promotion a little bit later on. So that is really what a Hub is all about. If you want, I put this slide together for those who are kind of visual people. The content hub, again, is in the center. The spokes surround that. Think of it almost like a wagon wheel. As the wheel starts to turn, you gain traction. The spokes then are sending traffic to the content hub, and the hub is actually driving leads and conversions for the business. One of the people that recently attended one of our content marketing workshops, we talked to her afterward, and she said, I almost think of Hub and Spoke like Thanksgiving dinner. And she said, I see the turkey as the hub, and then the stuffing, the cranberries, the potatoes and gravy, and the rolls as the spokes. And if you take that analogy just even a little bit further, you can repurpose the turkey as turkey sandwiches, as turkey salad, and turkey soup. So hopefully that kind of pulls that concept together a little bit more. And then a practical application of it is actually an example of our Google penalty recovery kit. So in the center there is the guide, the actual kit itself, and you see that it's surrounded by tweets, it's surrounded by guest blog posts that we did on other websites, our own blog posts, a video, and actually another webinar. So what we're trying to do again is with these spokes is to drive traffic to the hub, where the hub actually through a lead capture form produces a lead for us that we can over time nurture. Another practical example is a company called Yale Appliance, and they're an appliance company out in the Northeast, and they publish buying guides in all the particular categories of their products that they have in the store. So if you go to their site, you'll see that they have buying guides for under cabinet lighting, they have buyer's guides for washers and dryers, and really anything that they sell in a particular category in their store has a buying guide attached to it. And when you think about the Hub, it's a free guide, a video, white paper, webinar. It's really something that's substantial. And as I mentioned earlier with Rand Fishkin in the 10X content, it really is something that's pretty significant, and it's focused in a particular area or a particular topic. And when you publish that Hub, one of the things that you want to consider is that you really have to promote it. And we know that the folks at LinkedIn are doing the same kind of thing that we're doing. They're publishing Hub content about once a quarter. And what they told us is that they look at publishing a Hub just like a product launch. So there's a press release. There's other things that talk about this piece of Hub content as it were a software product or anything else that's brand new, and they market the heck out of it, and then every 90 days they end up publishing another piece of Hub content. And one of the things that you'll develop over time if you decide to go down this path is a library of Hub content. And this is a screenshot of Vertical Measures, and you'll notice that we have a number of different pieces of Hub content, and they fall into different categories of services that we provide for our clients. And over time, we've been able to build out a Hub library. And then one of the premier content marketers out there, Hubspot, actually has so many pieces of Hub content that they actually have it divided into different categories. So they're really experts at doing this. And as I mentioned, Yale Appliance is doing a great job of Hub and Spoke. So if you're going to go down this path, some of the questions that you might have are about how do we come up with topics and ideation for a Hub and Spoke content piece. And some of the things you want to consider is what kind of search volume is behind your topic idea. You want to make sure there's enough volume out there to get traction and traffic back to your site. And would your content really be strong enough that others would share it and others would link to it? And could your PR team or link builders actually use this for outreach to build links, or to actually have others write about you and drive traffic back to the site? Another thing to consider too is as you put this significant piece of content together, back to my example of the Thanksgiving dinner, how can you repurpose the content? Can you carve quotes out of it? Can you carve graphics out of it that you can repurpose and put in social media channels? Really, you want to think about that as you develop it, so you can have some ideas on what the spokes might be after you put the Hub piece together. And then again, does it provide enough value that someone would trade an email address for the content or some other information about them? And finally, do you have the internal resources that can help you put all of this together to actually build out this content? One of the questions we get asked pretty often is, so do I put a gate on this? And what I mean by a gate is there an email capture form in front of it before you download? We've actually done a lot of testing where we ask people for an email address, or maybe we ask them for an email address and another piece of information. If your content is valuable enough, people will at least trade their email address for it. And if it's super valuable, they may give you lots of other information about what size of company they are, how much they spend in a particular product or service area. So consider that. And then the graphic that I'm showing is actually from Hubspot, and it's a process map on should you or shouldn't you gate content. And with all the process diagrams and boxes and arrows here, it might seem a little bit confusing, but the bottom line is that almost always the answer to gate is yes. So you gate that content in order to capture leads, and from that the leads get in your sales funnel so you can lead nurture them, send them emails, and draw them closer to becoming a client or having them buy your product. So let's talk about the spokes. So the spokes are really these ancillary pieces of on-site and off-site content that support and promote the hub. So they can be a series of blog posts related to the hub and include a link that points back to the hub. They could be a press release announcing your free guide or your case study. They could be tweets. They could be Facebook posts, infographics. You could actually even do native advertising or paid promotions that point back to the hub. And one of the things to always consider is that if you're promoting the hub, you need to put a link that points back to it. That's an important piece of it. And use anchor text that refers to the topics that are in the hub, because you want to be found for those keyword phrases, and you can do that with the links that are pointing back to the hub. And really what you want the spokes to do is to reach back to revive the hub content and extend forward to create, promote, and distribute that new content. And what happens over time is you can continually revive the hub content with the spokes that you're publishing, because generally speaking, hub content is evergreen and really only needs to be refreshed from time to time. The bottom line on spokes is that people consume content in different ways. So make sure that you're publishing in different formats and you're publishing in a variety of channels. And as a reminder, don't gate the spokes. But I mentioned earlier that part of the success of a hub and spoke content marketing program is promoting and distributing. And I include this slide because promotion, the way we look at it, is driving an audience to your content. So the promotion might be that you're doing Facebook ads. It might be that you're doing ads in LinkedIn, or maybe it's an AdWords program that you've put together to drive traffic to that hub. And on the distribution side, it's really putting your content in front of your audience. And the audience could be on LinkedIn. So for example, you might do a post on LinkedIn. You actually might do a slide deck and publish that on slideshare.net. But really on the distribution part is you're finding an audience that already exists and you're publishing your content there. So you're casting the widest net possible in order to pull people in to get them exposed to your hub content. So I said that I would show you a production calendar, and I broke the rules of creating slides, which is like lots of words on a slide. But I did this for a particular reason, knowing that we're going to send this deck to you. And I just also wanted to show you again that Hub and Spoke is just a part of a content marketing program. It's not the be-all, end-all. So what happens then is as you start to publish, you'll see this Hub and Spoke content, but you'll also see it within the scope of other content marketing pieces that we're producing. And again, our cadence is about once every 90 days where we're publishing a hub piece of content. So if you look at month one, we're actually doing regular blog posts that we typically would do and publish on our site. We're publishing a free guide, and then we promote that in social media channels and on blog posts. Month two, we're doing a press release, other blog posts, and then all of this ancillary spoke content that is not only part of our content marketing program, but also supports the hub pieces of content. Months 3 and 4, again, month 3, we're producing another hub piece of content, and then all of these other posts are supporting and reviving previous pieces of hub content that we published in the past. So just to give you an idea of the variety of channels that we use and the kinds of content that we're publishing in this 6-month program. And again, I put these in mostly as reference for you, so when you get the deck, you can look at these a little bit closer. So the most important thing is, after we've taken the time, trouble, and effort to put all of this stuff together, what kind of results can we expect? And that's really what it's all about. The company that I spoke about earlier, Yale Appliance, this is actually their traffic since February of 2011. And you can see that over time their traffic has grown dramatically. And that's really another point that I wanted to make, is that if you go down the content marketing path and you go down the hub and spoke path, realize that it's not a quick fix. It's not something that's going to generate traffic overnight. But if you look at this traffic graphic, you can see how tremendous a lift that they've had over time doing content marketing and doing hub and spoke in particular. And in terms of some details about that previous graphic, they've grown their traffic from 40,000 visitors to 150,000. Their leads have grown to 2,300 a month, up from 800. Their revenue is up 40% since they started the content marketing program. And according to their president, Steve Scheinkopf, their profitability is up way more than that. So this is one company, some results that they've been able to achieve. Some of you might be familiar with Dave Ramsey. He is a personal budgeting guru. If you look on their website, you'll find a guide to budgeting. You'll also find that they've done blog posts that support the guide to budgeting. And in fact, there's a link here that is the anchor text is Guide to Budgeting, and then the far right graphic is actually a post that they put in Facebook. So they're executing hub and spoke the same way that we would at Vertical Measures, publishing a hub and then talking about it on their own website and then in other ancillary channels. And if you look at the growth of traffic on their site, they're actually at almost 600,000 visitors a month. It's a great traffic. Another example is River Pools, and if you know of Marcus Sheridan, he's been in the content marketing space for quite some time. In fact, he is a speaker and goes on the circuit now and talks about how successful it's been for his company. But they're following the same process where they're doing a hub piece of content, which is on the left there, and they're asking for first name, last name, state, and an email address. So it's a little bit more information than just your email address. And they're also supporting that hub piece with publications on their site and in their social media channels. And again, you can see the traffic growth on their site where he's getting almost 150,000 visitors a month. And this is just a pool company up in the Northeast. And I mentioned Hubspot earlier. They are the experts at content marketing, and they have an extensive library of hub content on their site. And if you look at their traffic patterns, they have over 500,000 visitors a month. And more importantly, they have almost 350,000 keywords in the Google Top 100, and they have almost 3 million links that point back to their site from other websites. So not only have they grown traffic, they've grown ranking in terms of keywords to a great degree, and they have almost 3 million links pointing back to their site, which gives them more and more authority within their space. And then finally, I have one slide that talks a little bit about Vertical Measures and the last couple of hub pieces of content that we've been able to produce and launch. So we launched one last week, which already has 446 downloads and over 100 new contacts. And our previous strategy guide, which we published at the end of last year, has almost 1,000 downloads and almost 300 new contacts. And I think it's really important to mention at this particular point is when you do hub and spoke, you do want to drive traffic back to your website, but it's really more important than that, because not only do you want the traffic, you want the leads, and those leads then convert into business. So really it's about a profitable content marketing strategy, one that gives you a return on your investment. But again, to reiterate, it's not something that's going to work overnight. It takes some time to develop. And once you have that hub library and you continue to support and revive those hub pieces of content, you'll see some dramatic growth in traffic and also some great growth in leads and conversions. And that is the long and short of content marketing and how we consider that at Vertical Measures. And I mentioned that I would include some references, and here are just a few. And if you spend the time looking through this, it will support some of the things that I've mentioned, but it'll also give you some ideas on coming up with some hub and spoke content marketing on your own. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Quinn for questions.
Yes, well, Mike, thank you so much. I think the first question I kind of want to take, it actually asks, for the examples that have just been shown, do you know when they started content marketing? All of the charts for 2010 to 2015, what was their jumping off point? So I'll just take that real quick because I managed those specific hubs that Mike mentioned. And we actually started really going hard and heavy with the hub and spoke model. I think it was last year was our first full year. And then we probably did one or two before that. So it was really maybe late 2013 that we started. And we really started to fine tune the process and implementation of our hub and spokes, where now we're very much in a rhythm. So we've been doing the hub and spoke for about 2 years now. So that hopefully answers your question. So jumping back to you, Mike, I have a question from Zach. He asks, guest blogging has been decried by Google for SEO purposes. How does this impact hub and spoke content marketing?
Well, I think you have to be careful about where you publish content. And one of the things that we do at Vertical Measures is we publish content on other websites almost weekly. And what we've discovered is that there are other websites that are in our space that have great domain authority. They are actually well thought of and well trafficked in our industry. So I think that if you focus on websites that you should be on, I don't think you'll have any issues with penalties. I think that if you guest blog post for link building purposes only, that you might have some issues with that. But again, we publish pretty consistently all over the place. We do LinkedIn, Search Engine Land, a number of other websites that are focused on SEO and content marketing. And we know that we get referrals and leads from those websites. And we do the blog posting for a legitimate purpose. So I think if you stay along that line, that you'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I actually wrote a couple of posts on Marketing Land that were, kind of a spoke to our hubs, these last two that Mike mentioned. And we've converted quite a few people just from those posts where we'll get, 25 new contacts from one blog post. I would never consider it a guest blog. It's more of a contribution to an existing industry publication. So just to add that.
That's a good way to position it. Yes.
Yeah. So Mike, I have another question from Guy. He asks, how integral are services like Infusionsoft or Hubspot to hub and spoke content marketing?
I think that they're really important, and I think one of the reasons for that is you can track the activity on your website, and then you can start to look at people who have been to your site, they've come back a number of times, you know what pages they've been on, you know what they've downloaded, so you have an idea of who they are and what they're really interested in. And depending on if they reach out to us, we actually have a history of who they are and what's happened. And we do HubSpot, and we recommend that to our clients. We're actually a HubSpot partner. And one of the things that we've discovered is on the sales side, on our business development side, is those kinds of tools give us a lot of insight to the people that have been on the site, the people that we're going to talk to, even to the point of how many people might be in their business, what kind of revenues they're generating annually, and some other information that's really kind of tied to an email address of someone who's downloaded a particular piece of content from us. So I would say that they're really important, and there's a number of different tools out there. So Infusionsoft, Act-On, HubSpot, a number of others. So I think it bears doing the research, depending on how much traffic and what your products and services are, to be able to use and integrate those products into your website.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mike. I think you can definitely do it without an automation software, but it makes your life so much easier to be able to have, all the robust tracking, because I can actually drill down exactly where every single lead came from. And then you can really, change and adjust your strategy depending on how that ended up working for you. So let's see, another question. And then if anyone has any else, please send them over or tweet us with VM webinar. But I have one from Robin. She asked, do you have best practices for how you use SEO data and traffic data across specific channels in your content strategy?
I think that we do. It's probably not as defined as we'd like it to be, but I think that's a really good question because you want to analyze as much as you can, what's happening on the site, what the drivers are, and what content is resonating with your audience. And I think without measurement, you're kind of a ship without a rudder. And as Quinn just mentioned earlier, with Hubspot, we can drill down and find out exactly where the traffic is coming from, where they've been on the site, and what's working and what isn't. But we do a lot of testing. We do landing pages where we're trying to optimize. We've actually experimented with lead capture forms. How much information are people willing to fill out in order to download a piece of content? So I think, based on SEO, if that's really what your question is about, you really do have to track things, and you have to test, and you have to measure over time.
Yeah, I agree. And, it comes down, I think, especially with ideation, which I know you touched on, Mike. We do have a whole best practice checklist on exactly, what you should look at. How do you come up with an actual title? And then how do you compare that with the competition that's out there and the traffic volume? So you can actually make some smart choices with the actual hub title or the spoke title itself. So I think that's all the questions we have, unless anyone sends any more. But if you do, we'll try to answer them afterwards via email. So I want to go ahead and thank you, Mike, again for being with us today and illuminating us with all of this information. We will make sure to send out the slides as well as the recording, and we'll get that to you tomorrow morning. But thanks again for coming, and please mark your calendar for our next webinar. It's always the second Thursday of the month, February 11th. We're going to have a special guest, John Doherty, and he'll be talking about how to build your content marketing machine. So we'll have registration open for that in the next couple of days. So again, thank you, Mike. We really appreciate it, and thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.